Welcome to Books Are Good Medicine, a podcast sponsored by the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community, featuring books and other Native American-focused teaching resources. We are your hosts, Allison and Odia.
And Odia Wood-Krieger. Today's episode is an author talk. Two special guests, Tom Peacock and Betsy Albert-Peacock. Both are wonderful educators, academics, authors, and publishers.
Tom is a member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. He has authored many books on Ojibwe history and culture, education, fiction, and racism. Betsy is a member of the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. She was a faculty member in the education department of the University of Minnesota Duluth for many years and has written several children's books.
The couple own Black Bears and Blueberries Publishing, which publishes books on Native topics by Native authors and illustrators. In this episode, we talk with Tom and Betsy about each of their new books and how educators can select the right books about Native experiences for their classrooms. We hope you enjoy.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming, Thomas and Betsy. It's so nice to have you.
I'm thrilled that we got the two of you. I know it's a bit of a trek south for you. You're from northern Wisconsin or Fond du Lac, depending which part which house you're living in. And so I'm really excited that we actually have you in the flesh here today. And so thank you for making the trek to see us so we could have this conversation in person.
Thanks for getting us out of the bush.
Well, y'all are really busy.
Yes, we are.
And so you're saying you'll never retire, huh?
Well, we kept saying we were going to retire 2.5 years ago, last year, this January for sure. And now we just decided we're probably just going to drop dead selling books.
Oh, I love it, though. I mean, we're really grateful for all the work.
Selling books, not the dropping dead.
Yes.
Let's be clear.
Let me be clear. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but we really are appreciative of your work that y'all are doing and with Native authors and supporting them. And how did you all get started in this?
Well, we both retired from the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and I think about 2014 or so, and we sat around for a couple of years thinking about what else we could do. And Betsy's been my editor for many years, and of course I've been writing forever. Then, so a couple of years later, I said, let's start a publishing company. And I said, we're going to work our butts off, and we aren't going to get paid because we're going to do a nonprofit.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it happened. I knew, as a writer, been working with publishers, knew that part. And then about 5 million years ago, I worked in a print shop, so I knew the old fashioned way of doing printing. So I'm familiar with working with printers a bit. And my grandmother worked in a print shop as well. She actually cleaned a print shop. So I was familiar with presses and that kind of thing. So, and then we just kind of started. We didn't really know anything about it.
It's like the Indian way.
Yeah. We didn't know anything about graphic designers or illustrators or anything like that. And so we established kind of an online kind of presence and did the Facebook, Twitter thing, seeking out manuscripts and illustrators. And along the way, we found a couple of graphic designers to work with. And I think we did 4 books. Our goal was to do 2 books a year. Yeah. And I think we've published 50 or 51 books so far.
51.
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness! And you're just
cranking them out.
5 more this, even on the...
Yeah, 5 more this year. Oh. We're hoping to finish, yeah.
It's so amazing. It really, really is. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Exactly. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
And you have a new book out. Is it Makoons, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, the book is illustrated by Erin Cant Bernard, and I told her she's the reason the book sells because she does such a fantastic job illustrating. The Makoons is about a little bear and his mother, and it starts off with asking his mom, "Tell me about when I was born." So it's a story about Makoons, which is little cub, and it's really a lesson on bears He talks about how big he was when he was born and that he didn't have any fur. And that he hibernates. And then when he's about 2, he's going to take off and find a mate and leave his mom. And he says, I hope she can make bear pancakes because I love pancakes.
Oh my gosh.
And then she says that the scariest part was you were so interested in toilets and the humans using the toilets in the campground. And one night you snuck out and used the toilet. And he says, I bet I made a mess, didn't I? So she explains to him, why do humans use a toilet and we don't? And she explains to him that when bears eat seeds and things, they go right through them without being digested.
Oh, sure.
So he is reseeding the forest and fertilizing it.
Yeah.
And that's his job. That's his purpose.
A little nature lesson right in there.
Yeah. So then he asked, well, what's the human's purpose?
Good question.
And she said the human's purpose is to take care of the animals and the plants and the air and the water, but sometimes they forget. So I'm hoping that every child that hears this story is going to go, I'm not going to forget. I'm going to do my job.
Well, it's so neat that you are doing this like birth story because I don't know. I always get confused if it's because I'm Menominee and Navajo, and I just know that I'm supposed to share my son's birth story every birthday. Mm-hmm. And so every birthday we wake up and I tell him about the day that his labor and everything. And every year it changes. Not the details do, right? And it adapts to like the age that he's, and how what he's more interested in. One year it was the weather, and one year it was like who is all there, and it's just changed. But this is it is kind of a native tradition to do that for your child, and so that's really neat that you're integrating that tradition into the book, and so I really love that. It's really neat. It touches me, and with all your books, how would you see it intertwining in the classroom or being integrated into the classroom?
Well, I was in Grand Portage a few weeks ago and read to Head Start kids, and they are learning the language. So I started off by asking them, what does Makoons mean, little cub, and what do you call mama bear, Makua? And then in the story, as I was reading, the word poo, the word for poo is moo in Ojibwe. Oh. So when I got to that part, I said, who knows what moo means? And this little 4-year-old jumps up and she goes, poop! Just, like, I got that one, So, it's not only a book it's a book about the environment, too, because when they say, that one of the pictures talks about when the people forget, and it's got a picture of a campfire and a forest fire. Oh. And littering. And so it as a teacher, you could say to kids, what can you do? What would be your part when you're camping? What would be your part if you see trash out?
Right.
And thinking about what their purpose is. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really good teaching book because it teaches them about bears, hibernating, size of bears, things bears might do. Bears could easily go into a campground. We have lots of bears where we live. And I think, part of it is Tom's Bear Clan, so our books are culturally relevant. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important for kids to learn not only about bears, but about their culture.
And Bear Clan, too, on my dad's side.
Uh-huh. So many Bear Clan.
There's so many,
yes. So many Bear Clan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good, strong one.
Yeah.
So I'm curious with the titles of the books that you have, what's the chicken, what's the egg? Do you think about the topics that teachers need to teach about and then find books that fit those standards or fit those topics? Or do you just write about what you want to write about and then let teachers figure it out on their own?
Like for most of my books are all kids' books, and so like the Firefly story. I love fireflies, and I love the name Wawatisi. And that book I wrote because my kids came to visit, and my son said, "Mom, tell the kids about Grandpa in boarding school." And it kind of took me off guard because I wasn't expecting that. And so I did. My dad was taken when he was 6, and I told the kids all about that. And when they left, Tom said, "You should really write a book about that because kids are hearing it on the news now, all the graves and the bodies and, all the places, Canada, United States." And so I did. And it's kind of funny because one of the kids asked me today when they asked questions after I read the book Firefly, he said, he asked me what I knew about boarding schools. How did I know about boarding schools? How long did it take me to write? And I said, it didn't take me long at all because once I found out that my dad was in boarding school, and I didn't find that out until I was like 30 years old, I wanted to learn everything about it. And so I had everything in my head. It didn't take long at all to write that book. So, that's how that came about. I didn't really have a name for it until after I wrote the whole thing. And then I thought, well, what would I like that little girl to be named?
And there's a ton of books about boarding schools, but very few, if any, really about Minnesota.
Or children.
Yeah. And so I use that one in one of the lessons that I've written, in a combination of others. So thank you for writing that one. Another one that I think is really pertinent for state standards is this one, right? To talk about the Hinkley fire. Because again, people want narratives of, Minnesota history. But we don't have a lot from Native perspectives. So again, a really wonderful book. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand how, these terrible things happen and Native people knew how to survive.
Yeah.
Right. And you look in here and, you see folks being down in the water and covering up and carrying the animals down there and just inherently knowing how to survive.
Yeah. That is pretty much word for word from the person that I interviewed. It was like 50 years ago that I interviewed Elizabeth Gurno about the fire. She was 6 years old when the fire came through. And what I did was I've published it in other versions before, in like adult versions in other books. But then I went back to the original interview and pretty much took it word for word and then had an illustrator work it. And she was out at her sugar bush when I went out and interviewed her that day. And so she's been one of my mentors. She was one of my, when I was young, and just this very knowledgeable, traditional first language speaker. And she kind of took me under her wing when I was like 20 years old. And so I have this great respect for her. I always wanted to put it in the children's book. So that's kind of what I did. And she took me actually to the places, then showed me and where they went for the fire. And so I've spent years doing tours where I take people down to that place. And one of the times that I took a group of teachers there, we gathered down there where they went and gathered in a river to escape the fire. One of the teachers there was her granddaughter. And I had her read the story, and it was so touching, and it was very emotional.
It's so, I love that you're giving us a little background on how it all, like this kernel, kind of the seed is just, it started 50 years ago, and then it comes to this. And I was just recently talking to some friends, and we're talking about how natives, our wealth is in the giving and the sharing and the storytelling. And it just came to really be talking about, books are a way of sharing and giving to future generations, to our community. And that really showcases it, how we have conversations, right? We start talking with people over coffee, and And it just comes to being a book 50 years later, and it's just really amazing how our community works.
Yeah.
And it's just really beautiful. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, like with the fire, I remember hearing those fire stories when I was a little kid, from my grandparents who lived through the fire, and I call myself an avid listener.
Oh,
and so I've heard, and I've been interviewing people formally and informally my whole life for over
that's a skill.
60 years.
Yeah.
On their stories. So that was just something
resume?
that I did. Yeah. The one I don't need anymore because I'm retired. Yeah.
Well, you have a new book coming out shortly, I think, right? Or what is the love story that's coming?
Well, I just had it. It was just released a month or so ago, and it's called In Whispers. And In Whispers is a boarding school love story, and so it's set in southwestern Minnesota, where they're set. Carolina's from Leech Lake Reservation, Cass Lake area, and Simon is from Fond du Lac Res, and they're 13 and 14 years old, and they both end up in boarding school during that time. After people were, this is after people were forced, so they weren't forced to be there. But they do, and then it tells their life going back and forth. Like there's a Carolina chapter and a Simon chapter, and of course they separate, and when they're still young, and they get back together again in their 70s and 80s. So they come back together again. It is kind of a boarding school Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. Yeah. I always wanted to do a love story. Yeah. Simon and Carolina, I fell in love with the characters. The book only took me about 5 weeks to write.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it just poured out of me. And the characters, so I'd say, well, what do you think, Carolina? And then there would be this Carolina would appear in my head, and I just type as fast as I can.
Oh my goodness!
She tells her story. I'm not sure where the story's going when I do that because the characters tell me the story. I just knew that. I wrote, Carolina and Simon boarding school. That's it. I don't develop outlines or anything else.
Right. Yeah. It just comes to you.
It just goes.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
There are a lot of love stories that do come from. I know a lot of Flandreau folks, people. A couple of my cousins fell in love there. This
past spring when we were in Lac de Flambeau, there was a couple that came up to me, and they had bought the book, and they said we met and fell in love in boarding school, and they were both in their 70s. So that was really something.
Because you're not a large publishing house, and I know that schools typically order from like large publishers. How do school districts get a hold of you? How do you recommend people find you to set up purchase orders, or how do you typically work with school districts if you're interested?
We started by taking a trip from Duluth way up to Bemidji and past that, stopping at all the schools on the way, showing them our books, getting orders, and then they became great customers and continued to order from us. And from there, I looked up Indian Ed coordinators, and then I would contact them. But I found that it's not good enough just to contact them. You really have to be there, show them your books, do that. But now I'm getting orders from all over the United States. Good Minds in Canada. Birch Bark orders our books. And they're like the most well-known one in Minnesota. And they order from us. And it going to MIEA, WIEA, all of those things, we make new friends, new contacts, and I have a listserv, and when we get like once a year, I'll send out to everybody on a listserv, and then I get tons of stuff back, orders, and this year because Tom had his surgery, I really set limits on how much marketing I was going to do, because I just didn't want to be so busy, and I'm still getting orders all the time, and from people that I haven't met yet. So, and Amazon, our books are almost all on Amazon, and we're getting orders, regular orders.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
we can say what we want about Amazon, but people always check it. They find it on there and they can order it, and especially like get it overnight or in a couple days. Like,
Yeah. And now that we've given the books to the writers, I can say, like yesterday, I got an email saying they wanted to order a book. Where can they get it? And I wrote back and I just said, you can get it on Amazon, because just ordering one book isn't going to put that writer in or out. She's still going to get all the royalties. And she was so happy. Oh, thank you. And I know bookstores aren't crazy about Amazon because they take away so much of their business. But it's good for people who can't get out and go shopping all the time. And, our books are in Barnes & Noble and stuff too, but...
yeah.
Our books are also carried by Ingram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
So Ingram's the only remaining book distributor really in the country now. I think after I think they bought out Consortium. So anyways, that they're carried that way, and people can get them through there as well. Notice, yeah.
So I know you keep flirting with the idea of retiring. Let's just forget about that.
Yeah. Let's forget that's not happening.
So what happens if there are folks who are interested in potentially pitching a book to you? How does that look?
Well, we usually get an email or a phone call, and then we talk to them about, we just got one yesterday, what kind of book is it?
Yeah.
What's your audience? And this person that called yesterday, she had self-published and a few years ago, and so I said, so you're looking to publish it with a publisher? She says, I'm looking for a marketer. I want you to publish it, because she says, I got one of your books from a friend of mine in Canada, and she says, I think you do a really nice job, and we would like you to publish it. And I said, well, send them to me. There's 2 of them. Send them. And then Tom and I will take a look and see if it's something that we want to publish. A lot of times we get really great manuscripts, and we work with them and we edit, and we always give them the option, you need to add this or add this. We don't add for them. And we know that what's going to sell and what's not going to sell. We've been in this long enough now to know what people are buying and what the audience is. And we mainly publish for Native people, but we're selling to everyone, but we want the Native kids to see themselves in the books, to understand, that this book is about me and my family or whatever else, and we always have that in mind whenever we accept a book, I think the most important thing, and we talked about that yesterday, is that if you're going to write a Native book, you need to be from that tribe, that reservation.
Right.
It can't be that you just live there for a while. You need to be part of that. And so that has stopped, some people. And we've had non-Native people send us stuff, and we know that who we are is Native people selling Native work. We want the Native voice. And so we just do what we can to get them out there. And sometimes we have to say no. Yeah. Sometimes we just say
your mission.
Or we have more than we can handle right now. That's happened too, that we just, we were going to do 4 books, and we already have 4 books in the making right now, and until they're done, we're not going to accept any more. And then we tell them where to go, that you can try this or try that, different companies, but don't give up.
I think it's really hard, too, for Native writers because sometimes they get pigeonholed by their publisher, their editor, and so there's, I don't want to say a safety working with you, but there's like a familiarity and probably like a comfort that you're not going to take advantage of them. I've heard from some Native writers, like, they feel like maybe the contract wasn't negotiated in good faith, or, they went in thinking one thing and it felt like the rug got, pulled out from under them. So I bet there's a lot of folks that are just, the baby steps that they can take with you is appreciated.
Yeah, that's important. I think, a lot of Native writers, their manuscripts are rejected by mainstream publishers because, the niche is too small and the larger publishers are in it for the profit. Well, we can print 1,500 or 2,000 copies and because, being small and so we've gotten a lot of writers started that way, and then they've gone on to do other work. And but sometimes when we get an email, we recognize right away from the name that we're going to publish this, whatever comes in. When just a couple of weeks ago we got an email from Dee Sweet, and she was Wisconsin's poet laureate for years, and a White Earth tribal member, just a very well-known poet. And she sent this incredibly lovely, like a res Dr. Seuss thing.
Oh,
and
I love it.
We read it and said, we're going to do this. And so, so sometimes it's like that. It's just like magic. We're incredibly, we felt very gifted to get that. Her agents and her publishers, didn't want it because, it doesn't fit what they do. We said, darn right, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll,
my gosh. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be so fun.
Yeah.
We definitely need a replacement for Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. This will be
she's
kind
not
of the
ready
res
anymore.
version.
Oh, I love it. Oh, my goodness. It makes me really, really happy. And that our my son and my nieces and my hopefully future grandchildren have these books, because we certainly didn't. And that's how this, I think that's why we're doing this podcast work too, is because it's our way to work for the future generations. And that's exactly what this is all about. And just so beautiful to hear what you all are doing, and really grateful for your work and appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
I have so many of your books because every time, I see you at an event, you so graciously came and presented at the Understand Native Minnesota Educator Academies. And you had all your books out, and I was like, I need this one.
it's like Christmas.
And I was on the planning team for the Minnesota Indian Education Association. We're going to do it next year, and I've already put that bug in your ear because people look forward to your stuff, and they love the huge selection of books, and they get so excited to see actual humans publishing really great stories.
Well, and they're so the way they're made too is just like they're usable. You can carry this. I can carry this in my purse and be okay. And then
10 of them in your purse.
right, and be all right. Yeah, and I just like the fonts tend to be bigger, which is nice. And so it's just the way you get them printed too is really, really nice. And so I think that's one thing that in a classroom, these books are easier to have little hands use and so forth. And but how did you come up with the black bear? And the name.
Well, we were sitting around one day and said, well, we have to have a name for a company. And I
Right.
says, okay, let's both sit down and we'll each write down a few of them and then we'll decide. And we did. And mine was Black Bears and Blueberries. And we live, we Bear Clan,
Yeah.
live out in the woods.
Yeah.
We love blueberries, so do bears. And I don't know, I just thought that was a good one.
It is. Yeah. It's very fitting.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a little sweet, there's a little, it's just, and then BBB,
Yeah.
Actually, many years ago, when I was in the classroom, I brought in. There used to be a program called Time of the Indian, and it was sponsored by the. I can't remember. It was part of the Minnesota Science Museum. Anyway, they would bring in professional writers, the Writers in Residence program, into schools throughout Minnesota, and I had them bring in some professional writers like Roberta Hill, from Wisconsin and that kind of thing. And they'd spend a week working with Native kids on poetry and stories and things like that, and they'd publish a little thing. But anyway, one of the collections that they published in Time of the Indian was some writing from a little girl, a second grader, I think, from Pine Point Elementary School on a White Earth Reservation. And when Betsy came up with that name, anyway, I remembered back the poem that she wrote. It was called My Heart. This is a second grader, and I've never forgotten that. Just profound. The title, My Heart. My heart, a bear eating blueberries.
Oh, look at this. How just circular and everything, how it just comes back around.
Yeah, I could just picture
Yeah.
eating blueberries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. See, there's a story behind
And
everything. Yes. Awesome.
I have a few that aren't necessarily all your books. This one's Black Bears and Blueberries, but very first book of yours that I got introduced. So when I was with Minneapolis Public School, we had cases of these books. I don't know where they came from, but we would gift them to people all the time. Graduation, 4 Hills of Life. Teacher PD, 4 Hills of Life. And it's such a good book. And of course, the artwork is amazing. But how did this book come to be? Because, it's such a important topic that I think all educators need to know about.
Yeah. Well, I had done a book called The Good Path right before that. And The Good Path, The Good Path, anyway, I did. And I wanted to not only introduce Ojibwe thinking and history in it, but talk about a sort of a way of living. And so I introduced that value system in the process of writing it. It's sort of sideways. That's kind of the way that I write. I try to write in a way our traditional people thought and think, which is advice is given not directly, it's sideways, indirectly.
It is, yes.
And through story. And so when The Good Path came out, that was like how to live. And then I thought, well, I really need to do something on why we live. And I was giving a little talk at the middle school in Ashland, Wisconsin, and I think I was in the 7th or 8th grade classroom. And I told the class I was writing this story called The 4 Hills of Life, and I was on the last chapter, and I said, what do you think that last chapter should be about? And this Native boy raised his hand and he said, tell us why we live, why we're here. And it was so profound.
These young minds.
Yeah, coming from a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And I jumped in my car when on my way home, and I thought about it all the way home, and thought, what an amazing thing to come from the mouth of 13-year-old.
Right.
Something so deep. And when I got back to the university, I sat down with a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, and I said, what that boy had asked, and he said, take your Ojibwe thinking, he said, and he said, and combine him with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl was a survivor of the Holocaust, and he wrote about why we live. So I did. I read Viktor Frankl's book, and then I put my Ojibwe thinking into it, and that's where the Four Hills of Life came from.
Beautiful. And then you've done the young person's.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom said you should do one for children now, because the other ones he wrote a long time ago. And so another one we kind of sat down together and he put his ideas down. And
this one's just so lovely because it has the language in it. Do you have
completely bilingual, the whole book.
Do you have any language files for these so people can listen to the words?
There's a website that you can go to online, ojibwe.net.
Oh, you're all set.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well,
So the glossary's in the back, I don't know if the glossary's in the back for that because it's on every page. But on our other books, a lot of times that have some Ojibwe, the glossaries are in the back so that people can look them up and try to pronounce them or whatever.
I just want to circle back to this one because it is an activity book.
Yeah.
Teachers can use it. There's questions in there and different things for them to do, but sort of a Ojibwe 101 kind of figure out, honor the creator's vision. So talking about the grandfathers. So really giving some of that foundational knowledge.
Yeah.
To Ojibwe people, along with the Four Hills of Life.
Yeah.
You also have To Be Free.
Yeah.
So again, another type of, talking about racism. You have Govinda Boudreau, Ivy that you mentioned before is part of this, with contemporary photos. Can you tell us about this one?
Well, I had done the To Be Free book years ago, and with Marlene Rizery, and of course it had been about 15 years, and we had Afton Press, I think, at the time publish it. Then this time around, Marlene had been bugging me for years. She said, we really need to redo that racism book because of all the way racism is really, we thought maybe we were doing something about it, but it's exploded and become mainstream again now. And now you have things like, the Proud Boys and all of that going on. And so I said, well, I really don't want to do it. And she said, well, let's find somebody to do it. And of course, I thought of Govinda right away. And so Govinda rewrote it. And then we said, we need new photos, update that. And we thought of Ivy right away. So they redid it. And that's kind of what happened there. So it's an updated version of an older book. And it's written again, so that teachers can pick it right up because it has activities in it. Pick it right up, and they don't really need to do any prep. Kind of like The Good Path is like that as well. They don't need to do any prep. They can just kind of pick it up and run with it. It has stuff to do at the end of each chapter.
Which teachers appreciate.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
And then we have one more that I really want. I love this book. And so illustrations by Dr. Annette Lee. Love, having people look. The Northern Lights. There's just so much to love about this story, and this is Minnesota Historical Society Press, but just so beautiful. And a lot of the science standards talk about including different ways of knowing, and love this book for so many reasons.
And I do have a little story to share. I think I might have told you this already, but one of my best friend named her son, Donnie.
Yeah.
And so it's just, look at you're naming kids. So, and he is what a jewel of a boy. He is so sweet, so intelligent. And so it just it's an offshoot of the book, I think, he's
A real testament to
Yeah.
how far your impact goes.
Right. I just had to share that because I always think of Dragani now, and I'm curious to see how he'll grow up and be another.
That'd be cool.
So I know one of our general questions is always, what's next? But I feel like,
Oh my goodness.
there's so much of what's next for you. 5 more books coming out, maybe another authors gathering. Before we got on camera, you talked about building a little writer's studio on your land, and that really makes me excited because that's like, you're definitely not retiring. You're building a writer's studio. So this is awesome. Keep building. We don't want you to stop.
Yeah, we're thinking about just writing until we lose our minds and somebody has to show us the door. Or
Well, I hate to say it, I don't think you're going to be allowed to stop.
Yeah.
When I say allowed, like the way the stories come to you, you have so many stories to tell, and they just will keep coming.
Yeah. He has another one. He's in mind right now.
Well, I'll have another one coming out from MHS Press in the spring, the naming of a key. I've taken that traditional story of the Maingan, the wolf and first human walking earth and naming all things, and put it into an illustrated children's book. And so that'll be coming out, and that'll be a hardcover like the Forever Sky.
When is it coming out?
I think we're talking in the spring.
Like March?
Yeah,
Say
like March or
MIA.
like MIA, like MIA thing. That's what Shannon Pennyfeather is telling me.
Oh, good. It's Shannon.
So, yes.
I'll get on the horn.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
you know where to find us.
Yeah.
If you need any help promoting, we are here and fully support you.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I think we're doing. I'm inside my head is something I'm calling Warriors. I have these 3 old men that are inside my head, and these 3 old Shinab Vietnam vets living in elderly assisted living out on a res, who have another brother who was killed in Vietnam, who have a niece who's working in that care unit as a nurse, who is a vet of Desert Storm.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where the story's going at.
Yeah.
But they're going to be named after the 4 directions, these old.
Oh.
And I want to model the characters after the spirits of those directions. So I don't know what the story is yet. But anyway.
I
so
can just see my
that's
dad
next.
in that. He's a Vietnam vet, and it's, when he gets around, other vets, it's like the coffee's brewing and the chain smoking is going on, and it's just, I think that. And then my dad actually was recently in the VA here in the cities, and a lot of the staff were former vet themselves, right? And having served, and there was just a difference. So this niece in this book, there's such a difference of the staff. You could tell the staff that had served and that was helping my dad, to the staff that hadn't, and they just understood my dad and his jokes and his, trying to act like he's not hurting, but sorry, Dad, you were, and they just really could connect, and so I'm really excited to hear, about that book, and I think we forget a lot of times. I'm a big I don't know how to say it, but like of our veterans just fully support them and are warriors, and they a lot of times are forgotten, and we are the ones that serve the most.
Yeah.
And we continue to be, and we need to support them. And they get recognitions at powwows and so forth, but I just think they really appreciate too, when my dad wears his hat, he comes in and people shake his hand, and that means a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And, so because it did take a good portion of life to go and serve, and I think that's one thing that I'm really proud of in the Native community, that we bring that honor to them. No. Oh, I can't wait to read that book. I'm gonna have you sign one for my dad. He'll love it.
Hey, so we know the names of the 4 characters: Wabanang, Jawanang, Ningabi, and Angiwede. Those will be the 4. And if somebody can come give me a name for the niece, that'll. I haven't come up with that name yet, or the name hasn't appeared to me yet.
Yeah.
She hasn't said, well, what about me?
Yeah. I'm going to be it.
I think that these should be named this.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
We really appreciate you taking the time and finding us and joining us on our studio here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
For you too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Books Are Good Medicine. Subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also visit our website, booksaregoodmedicine.com, to find episodes and resources, or to send us a comment. This podcast is sponsored by the Shakopee, Madawakan Sioux community and produced by Goff Public. Our theme song is Stomp Dance by Blue Dog. The opinions expressed on the Books Are Good Medicine podcast by its co-hosts and guests are their own in their personal capacities and do not necessarily reflect the views of any organization with whom they are affiliated or with the podcast's sponsor.